Hi guys, welcome back to Uncut Hawaii, the podcast where we get to talk to Hawaii's most interesting and innovative creators, entrepreneurs, and change makers. I'm Kolby.
And I'm Andrew. And this is the last episode of season 3. Crazy.
Yay!
Yeah. I mean, it was a season of change. Lots of changes this season. What'd you think, Kobe?
It was crazy. I feel like it was long. Normally, I feel like we just breeze through seasons like super fast, but then this one we started back in January with
Mhm.
McKenna on a manifesting episode. We had amazing people on like Jasper, Kimo Kennedy, we had Luke Shepperson, we had Kaylana. I mean, so many
Yeah,
great conversations we had, and also just like a big growth time for us,
for
I
sure.
think.
Yeah. I mean, and we took a big break to kind of like figure things out. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs. Like, I mean, like, I think a lot of you guys get to hear and see like the front end of everything. But yeah, the back end, it's starting to get tough timing and everything. Kobe flying over every time. But yeah, after manifesting and figuring it out and really like working at it, we were able to lock in a presenting sponsor. So that was a big
Yay,
first
Central
change for
Pacific
us.
Bank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Uncut presented by Central Pacific Bank. That was huge for us. That was a huge change. And so you notice halfway through our episodes, we actually changed to a new location. So we started recording at the tide pools at CPB. So that was one big change,
Yeah.
figuring out how to move all this equipment and set up in a new place. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome.
And then for our last episode, we tested out our going into season 4, which is going to be Uncut on the Road. We tested it out by Andrew actually flying to Hilo,
Yeah,
which
so
is
big
nice.
change. Yeah, instead of Kobe flying over, I flew over with the equipment, and yeah, we got to set up at a very special place in Hilo
Yeah,
to
at
talk to our
Sig
next guest.
Yeah, Sig Zane Designs. We got to talk to Kūha'o Zane, and he's just such a badass. I mean, he's the creative director at Sig Zane. He's been there for the last 20 years, but he's really like grown up. I mean, he's a Hilo boy, has just grown up in this rich culture and tradition with his dad Sig Zane, but also in his hula halau, halau o ke kuhi that his grandmother started. Just legendary family in Hawaiian culture, Big Island, and it was just really interesting to pick his brain.
Yeah, it was cool to see how his whole process on how he connects his past, all the
Mhm.
culture, and then also tying it into the future, and creating things that will last for generations to come.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Cheers.
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 Cheers. Thank you for
I was
having
gonna
us.
say welcome to Uncut, but we're actually at your place.
Welcome to Kuha'o, the office.
Thank you for welcoming us into your space and allowing us to set up to record. This is our first episode on the road.
This is exciting.
This is how you feel, right? Flying in every single time.
I know. Normally I fly in, Andrew
Yeah.
picks me up, and then we go, and I'm like, wow, kind of nice. I just have to drive over.
The roles reverse.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, we had to bring everything over. We set up, and this is our trial run for Uncut on the road. So we're stoked to have you as our first guest.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm
Super
honored.
honored. I know you're super busy. So thank you for making time.
Of course.
I feel like we have like a lot of things we want to ask you and talk to you about, but how are you feeling after Murray Monarch just like 2 weeks ago, was it? A couple weeks ago?
I think just as much as the preparation takes so many months to like prepare for it, I feel like those last 2 weeks or the 3 weeks after Mary Monarch is just as much of like, okay, wait, we're so busy for that time. How do we like sew everything back together again? Because I think that it takes such an immense focus for Mary Monarch that now all the things that you weren't focusing on, no matter if that's your house or if that's maybe some of like the yard work or something that you got to do, or even some of the emails, because my emails is like a jungle right now. But yeah, no, so now it's just like trying to put everything back together again.
Catch up,
Yeah.
play catch up. So what was special about this year, I mean, one of the things was that we were celebrating the 60th year of Mary Monarch. Did it feel different at all? I mean, you're like really deep in it. I mean, you got your you're dancing, you're planning a after party.
That was a bad idea. Bad idea. I definitely felt like this year everybody was on the same page to celebrate the achievement that Merry Monarch is.
Yeah.
Especially the 60th anniversary of it. And I think that everybody was on that same page to be able to almost like celebrate the community that built Merry Monarch. And that's why I feel like there are a lot of tributes that were happening, especially to my grandma, of course. But yeah, it definitely had that feeling that this was a big one, and this was one to be able to remember for the books. Yeah.
Nice.
I know. I was telling Andrew when we were driving over here. I was like, when I was growing up, Merry Monarch was a cool thing. I mean, it was like a tradition, And I remember going as a kid, but I feel like now it's like if you can get there, like if you can get to Hilo, or if you can get a ticket, it's like
the place
all
to
my
be.
friends too are like from Oahu and stuff. Like, oh, how do we get tickets? And like there's this like new energy. I feel like.
No, I was just explaining that to somebody that when I was a kid and I was going to Merry Monarch, or maybe I was just younger at the time.
Yeah.
And maybe now I'm just as old as everybody that's enjoying it. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. I take it back. But no, I swear there's a lot more of a youthful energy that's happening. And I think no matter if that's around some of the events and some of the like Ola Hilo that we do, or even if it's around some of the entrepreneurial efforts that are happening, especially with some of the local small businesses that are happening that come down. And it's almost like a gold rush during that time. And everybody's ready to spend money during that time, which is awesome. So I think that the intent of having Merry Monarch be a economic builder for Hilo, it definitely fulfilled that intent.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, Kolby did a good amount of shopping.
Yeah, like give yourself a budget, but you never fall within the budget. You're like, okay, shoot. Well, this is the one chance I get where all the local vendors are here. Not even just from Hawaii Island, from like people flying in from all the islands to be here. We had Lexi on. Well, Lexi's from here, but she's like, Merry Monarch is like, it's like their Black Friday, It's like.
It's literally the whole Christmas condensed into 1 week. So the whole Christmas season from, I don't know, like beginning in November all the way to the end of December, that 2-month period, all condensed into like 7 days.
That's
6 days maybe. Yeah.
And that's why you're still recovering.
And that's why I'm apologizing in every email. I'm sorry. Just got buried.
Okay, so we're recovering still from Merry Monarch, but then you're like quickly going into your grandma's quarter came out right before? Was it right before Merry Monarch?
It came out, I believe, like a week before or 2 weeks before. So it was just recently released. But we were working on this project for, I want to say, almost a year and a half now. But yeah, an immense achievement as well as an honor. And at the same time, I think she definitely puts herself onto that platform, not necessarily only for herself, but for all Hawaiians as well as all indigenous people too.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's what she stood for. And hopefully that's a message that we can get across with this U.S. quarter release.
Man, what a legend. I mean, I can't even imagine growing up in, I don't want to say the shadow of her legacy, because she's
it's a massive shadow.
So what was that like? Let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
So what was like, growing up in this culture and like,
You grew up in Keaukaha.
I grew up in Keaukaha. I went to Keaukaha Elementary, and then I went to Hilo High, and I was a terrible student. Horrible. But I talk about that a lot, so you don't really need to.
School's not for everyone.
All F's and 1D. I don't even know how that's even possible to pull that off.
Wow.
Anyway, it was right around 11th grade that I kind of like turned the switch, or maybe I grew up really quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's because my mom was probably threatening to give me lickings or something. But right around that time, 11th grade, I also too started to enjoy dancing hula, even though I've been dancing at that time for maybe about 7 years at that time. I started late. I started at 10 years old. And that's late. That's late in our family.
Was there like a pressure or something to dance, or?
There wasn't necessarily a pressure to dance. You're always around it. Like my mom guys, even now we have hula every Monday, Wednesday, and we have the small kids class that starts at 4:00, and then our class that we actually dance in is at 7 to 8 o'clock, and so you're there for like a 4-hour period. And when you're a little kid running around, 4 hours is a really long time.
It's a long time for
To
even
be
an adult.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you're not necessarily pressured, but you're just constantly around it.
Yeah.
And my mom also believes in the idea of like subliminal learning too. So if you're just around the halo and all of these chants, and these chants are like ancestral texts, it's from generations back. all of these chants are just constantly surrounding you, and she feels that like latent learning of being able to pick up on these things, maybe later on in life you'll be able to pull on them. And
Like osmosis.
yeah, exactly, like
Like,
osmosis,
yeah.
correct. And so I was never pressured to it. Wow, ooh, I don't know. Maybe I was. Maybe I was.
So if
Maybe a
you
little
didn't
bit.
start dancing till later on, like what were the things that you would like to do? Were you like surfing or
I think,
obviously not studying?
yeah, I was definitely not studying. You know, honestly, I don't know what I was doing. I think I was just, I mean, my mom, as I said, I was always a pretty mellow kid, like growing up. And so I was just pretty entertained with whatever was in front of me. And I had a lot of uncles that were either artists and very creative in their own right. And so I think a lot of times whatever they put in front of me influenced me in that way. And so I definitely like to draw, and I would be in the office all the time. So there'd always be like scraps of paper all over the place. So definitely that took up from like 0 all the way up to, I don't know. Well, actually, the company was started when I was 3.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think from
A
0 to 3.
little shop in Hilo
Yeah.
if you've never heard of Sig
Yeah,
Zane.
Sig Zane, this guy. Watch, he's gonna walk in. It started in 1985, but before that, he was doing craft fairs, and so he would do craft fairs like at Thomas Square in Oahu, and then finally we opened up our first shop in 1985. But I think that he opened up the shop because I was kind of growing. You know, I was 3 years old at the time, and I think for him it was a little bit of a oh shit, like I don't know if I can say that.
No, good, yeah.
It was kind of like a little oh shit, I need to like really get some income so that I can support my new son, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's when we started in 1985. But in general, leading up to the time when I started to dance hula, I mean, kind of typical things that everybody grows up going, sleeping over at their cousin's house, going and playing down at the beach or whatever it is. I definitely started to bodyboard and surf a little bit later. But yeah, nobody really pressured. They said, no, it's up to you if you want to dance. Are you sure? All your cousins are doing it.
Yeah.
You can go and hang out at your cousin's house, and maybe you can even sleep over at their house.
Just hang out with them. Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, you know, at the time I was like, because sleeping over at somebody's house, if you're
Yeah.
actually allowed to do it,
Yeah.
that held so much value at the
Oh,
time.
totally.
So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just go to one class or something. And as soon as you start, it's done. After that, you're locked for life.
So then you were kind of like dancing, and then at 11th grade, you said? That's when you kind of started like...
That's when I started to enjoy dancing. Because before that, and Etipua has this interview. I cringe every time I run into this interview. But she's asked in the interview how she feels my dancing is. And she said it so elegantly at the time. She's like, Kuha'o, he's a very dutiful dancer.
Dutiful.
Yeah, dutiful dancer. And I was like, oh, that's great. It sounds like beautiful. It's awesome. I thought it's, yeah, anyway. And then I swear it was like a couple of years later that I actually looked it up, like what dutiful meant. Doing things because you have to do it. And I was like, oh, wow, that was like a diss.
But elegant.
Yeah, it was a very elegant, and she said it so nicely in this interview. And I was there at the interview when she was saying it, and I was like,
Smiling. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
me.
you. But after I started to realize that, you know, I'm not there just to take up space, and especially in hula, it's something that if you do pour yourself into it, there's multitudes of benefits that you'll get back from it. And so I think that around 11th grade, of course, when I started to like focus at school a little bit more too, around 11th grade, that's when I started to take it more seriously. And then also too, that's when we started to travel. We started to go to Japan for a couple of weeks. We had this whole East Coast tour that we did, West Coast tour, Alaska, all over the place.
Nice.
So
It's kind of crazy that hula took you out of Hawaii and to all these places.
yeah, and it was there because I would see, so, like when I was growing up, my parents went to Tahiti for a week. They'd always take these trips all over. My mom went to Guam, she went to Russia. So I've always heard of these stories of traveling, but obviously until the opportunity showed itself for myself, I was like, when in time. I don't. It's not really that cool yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get to still travel? I mean, so you guys don't compete. So
No.
you're traveling to like share, educate, inspire other cultures and places and people.
Yep.
So is that still part of the halal today?
I think definitely slowed down with COVID, but there was a good amount of years leading up to COVID. I would say that was maybe yeah, about solid 10 years that we were going to Japan almost 7 times a year.
Oh,
Seven
wow.
times a year. I remember
Wow.
counting one year that I actually hit 14 trips to Japan in 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were always usually a week. And I was thinking, wow, 14 trips, that's more than one trip per month.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of that were either workshops or participation in different summer festivals, but a lot of it was just for exhibition. It was never for competition. And I think that given my mom's position in the larger community, and also our lineage of hula, that I mean, I'm the 5th generation, so it goes back pretty far.
Yeah.
And then there's still 3 generations after me too. I think given her position in the community, a lot of people just want her to do these educational workshops or to be able to share her chant style, her dance style, or even her own thoughts on choreography. And so usually we're always like tagging along as a part of the exhibition.
I mean, do you feel like you're part of this, like, kind of blending the past and the future? I mean, now you have a son, so kind of blending, like, what you've learned from your mom and your auntie and your grandma, and now kind of paving the way in this modern world.
No. I think that's an awesome way to look at it. And at the same time, I think my mom, when she's in the halau, she talks about this constantly, especially in like family conversations. But she always says that in her halau, she wants to see 4 generations.
Wow, yeah.
And that means that you're ensuring at least another 50 to 100 years of these practitioners. And so I think that kind of longevity is very valuable, especially, and you don't really hear people talking about that nowadays, that they want to create something that they can make sure to see 4 generations in this practice. And I think that if you're focusing on these 4 generations, then you'll see all of these. Somebody's busted. Police, Popo's coming. I promise it wasn't me.
It wasn't
Live
me.
in downtown Hilo.
Yeah, live in downtown Hilo.
Oh, they're close.
It's a part of the character.
Yeah.
Part of the character of downtown Hilo. Yeah, so I think that in that idea of looking 4 generations forward, you're very aware of specific individuals that are a lot younger than you, that are possibly participants or people that will be willing to take on the kuleana after you're done. And so I'm seeing like so many more innovative Hawaiians, as well as just practitioners in general, no matter if you're Hawaiian by blood or Hawaiian by heart. I'm seeing so many more innovative practitioners ahead of me, and I can't wait to see what they'll do in the future too. So now I think for me, what I'm trying to do now is to kind of use my experience in the business, because I've been doing design work for about 25 years now.
Wow.
And I've been at 6 Zane Designs for 20 years. So I'm using kind of like my experience in the business, as well as a network that I built up over the years, so that I can properly build a foundation for whatever innovative ideas the next generation is going to have, so that this generation that's currently holding the flag or being able to hold down the fort, so that this next generation will allow the next generation to have these innovative indigenous ideas and have it integrate itself, no matter if it's into environmental efforts, initiatives, or if it's into food sustainability initiatives, or even if it's within educational design initiatives. And so I think that's where I feel my current role is. Like, yes, I definitely feel like I'm still a little young.
Totally.
Just
yeah,
a little. Yes, we are. That's what I said. I still feel like, yes, I definitely am representing a certain youthful generation, and at the same time, I have my eyes on these next generation of innovative indigenous Hawaiians out there that have these ideas that hopefully we can prepare this foundation currently, so that we'll be able to support the next.
Yeah. No, it's funny how you say that, because I feel like so I'm about to turn 40. I'm turning 40 this year.
It's a celebration.
No, I am stoked about it, because actually, like, this age is pretty sweet, because like up until this point, I've always felt like I'm not the one that people are looking up to, or like not the one to teach, or not the one to speak, or not the one to, there's like that other generation, like maybe 10 years older than us, that's like the ones who are like know their shit, like they know what is going on, and like they know like the answers. But now I'm like, wow, we're actually now those people, because we have people like asking us to speak, or like our opinions on things and help asking us to teach. I'm like, wow, you really like, it's a mind shift once you get to that age that we're at.
Yeah, I was about to say that too, because like it's weird how like in your early 30s all the way up to the 40s, like it feels like you're scratching for position. But then now it's just a simple transition. We're like, oh wait, people are listening to me now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Like, oh, okay, now I got to work on foundation.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting transition.
Yeah.
That's great to hear because I turned 30 this year. And
Wow. Thanks.
not to rub that in, but you know, it's like now I'm entering this part of life that you guys just finished, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, how do I build that foundation and get, you know, so it's
No,
kind of cool
I
to hear. So I love this, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, no, I feel that too. And it's like, I think all these stages in life, it comes with age and, you know, experience and the knowledge and all that. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're there. You're definitely like mature for your age, but like once you're in a position where you're the one that people are looking up to, or like you're speaking and you're sharing and you're like thinking, it's a different mind. It's a shift in perspective, because then you like really have to know like who am I and like what do I stand for?
To be clear.
Yeah, like you need to know it for yourself, you know. And it's like, it's a cool, I don't know. It's kind of, I like this stage of
Nice.
life.
Yeah, no,
awesome.
I like this stage of life too.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean,
Yeah, it's exciting. You can be like Jay-Z, and Jay-Z wrote, I think he did the like 30's the next 20 when he did that song. I think he wrote that when he was 39. I was like, wow,
Nice.
you're really expanding that right there. It's a big gap.
yeah, you're pushing it. Yeah. Wait, so you've been in design for 25 years?
Yeah.
How did you get into design? Like, you know, was that like during that 11th grade shift where you're starting to get serious with things?
Yeah.
I mean, you've always were into art, but then what kind of motivated you to kind of, I mean, you didn't even like school, so what took you to LA?
My first t-shirt, well, actually, my first t-shirt design, this doesn't count, but I think I was 7 years old.
It always counts.
And it's because I was doing a bunch of sketches, and then my dad is a typical pocket, and he's trying to capitalize on his kid. So he took some of my sketches and turned it into like Christmas t-shirts or something like that. I had really weird like Santa that's being pulled by dolphins, and then I was really into fishing at the time. When I was 7 years old, I was like obsessed with uluas, and so I caught like a 14-pound omilu at one point, and that just fueled me for. It still fuels me today. Anyway,
Did you have the ulua sticker on the back of your car?
I actually had my own logo with a petroglyph guy that caught an ulua, and that was like my Kuha'o logo.
He made his own.
So yeah, my dad was capitalizing. Anyway, that was the first time I came out with a t-shirt, and then the next time that I came out was a weird like succession of events. Basically, there was a opening of a rental space right down the road over here, and I wanted to open up a surf shop in high school. I was super into surfing at the time, and I was just trying to figure out how do I get myself into the business of surfing, and so I wanted to create a surf shop that, you know, all my friends could come and hang out at. I don't know, something cool like that. But I wanted to do it, and my dad said, okay, well, you know, maybe you have to ask, you know, for like an investor or something, or maybe you can ask your grandpa if he can give you like a little bit of money so you can get it started. And then so he said, but if you have to ask your gungung, you have to put together a business plan.
Nice.
I'm like literally in 10th grade at the time. I'm like,
Business plan.
I just found my left slipper. I don't know what a business plan is. Anyway, I looked it up. I think I was in DECA at the time, Distributive Education Clubs of America. So I asked them what a business plan was, and Miss Nakamura helped me to do one. Did the whole, like, I literally did projections and everything, expenses.
Without ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so funny. I just had to do a profile write-up for somebody else, and I was like, I wonder if ChatGPT done it. Anyway.
Thank you, AI.
It kind of worked. Made my cousin a girl. Anyway.
So you made this business proposal.
Yeah, I made the business proposal, and I went and I presented it to my grandpa, and then I believe I left home. So my gungung's from Oahu, and so I presented it to him in Oahu, and I believe I came back, and then he called me, and then he got me on the phone, and like very straightforward, he's like, oh, you know, you put everything together. Thank you very much for putting everything together. I took a look at it, and it's so good, but no. I think I asked him for 10 grand. which kind of, maybe is a lot. Maybe it's too bad. I should have started lower or something like that. Shot for the stars. 10th grade, 10 grand.
Wow, you went all the way to Oahu, presented him with the...
So what happened after that?
Yeah, so when he told me no, that basically the idea was that that the opportunity of creating a surf shop kind of like crumbled. So my next step was maybe I can just make my own T-shirts or something. And one of the graphic designers that my dad was working with at the time, Punawai Rice, he just taught me how to use Corel Draw at the time. Nice. Way back in the day. He taught me how to use Corel Draw and kind of create just the basics for a T-shirt. And I created a logo and then a brand. This is, of course, before like custom ink where you can just order things online. And then, started to print my own T-shirts. So that's basically how I got into design. And I think
What did you call it?
It was called Absolute Vision.
Absolute Vision.
Gooch still has a T-shirt. Actually.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. And he has a sticker too from back in the day.
Do you still have?
Do you remember your first design?
I remember my first design. I remember I had a story behind the design too. It was a cool design, and if I may say so myself, but I sold the T-shirts in school, and I remember I was always competing with the Musubi girl.
Look at those little entrepreneurs at Hilo High.
Ramona Naone. I remember her name. But she was a hustler.
Just
she had her
musubis.
whole cooler just with musubis. But if she went out and gave all musubis, that's less budget in your daily, whatever money you're getting from your parents. You can't buy a T-shirt after that if you bought like 4 musubis. And so I was like, I gotta get to these people before her. Anyway.
Or you should have collabed with Ramona.
That would have been the one. Musubi on a T-shirt.
Buy one, get one.
You get an exclusive musubi subscription program.
You get from the special cooler. That's cool. Okay, so then in high school you were designing these shirts and you were falling in love with this passion?
I think...
Or it started to develop into a passion?
Yeah, it started to develop into a passion. I think the thing that I was addicted to is that I would have a vision in my mind, and I wasn't really that good at drawing at all. I was pretty bad at drawing, actually. But I think the idea that I had a vision in my mind, and this program, Corel Draw, and then Illustrator, of course, later on, gave me the ability to create that vision in my head and be able to put that onto paper or put it onto a T-shirt. And I think that that's the part that I actually got addicted to. How do you take these concepts and actually go through the execution all the way to fruition?
And to like see it out and
something
about.
out of nowhere. It's like magic.
And that's the thing that I'm still addicted to now today. Like I still enjoy that no matter if it's a new company or if it's a project.
The creation process. Nice. Okay, so you went to LA, went to college.
That was a whole nother journey right there. But yes, I barely made it into college.
Well, with the F's and the D's.
I know, exactly. They actually made me retake English, retake math, redo it. So it's almost like I just wasted my whole high school time. Anyway.
Hey, you were hanging out from 9th to 10th grade. And
I learned other things.
Yeah.
How to hustle alongside Ramona and the Musubis.
Slang and T-shirts and musubis. So you're in LA for...
I went to LA for... It's actually only 2 years that I was there. I got an AA degree. It was actually... I may or may not have selected it because the length of the degree. And plus too, I'm an only child, and my mom was definitely missing me at the time. But I think when I went to LA, I had a couple teachers over there that really impacted me. Wojowicz was one of my teachers, and he was my typography teacher. And he kind of gave me the idea that you can express emotion or you can express creative thoughts and concepts just in type. And so I think that a lot of those kind of teachers that impacted me at the time, they were the ones that like really ignited this love for design and this love for how design can be an avenue for creative thought. And also discipline too. Gardos was one of my teachers in LA too, as a Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. But Gardos, I remember distinctly one time I walked into class and we had to present every morning. It was only a 3-minute presentation, but everybody had to present their homework every morning. And that one, you get like those reps in of just being able to like present maybe you just made up your homework, but you need to figure out something to present.
How to sell it.
And this guy was like a stickler about it. Anyway, he was also a stickler about presentation. And so you'd have to put it onto, you'd have to like stick your piece of paper onto a blackboard, and then you'd be able to like present it like that. He would take your piece of paper, and if you didn't glue the edges, he would like blow the corner like that. Blow the corner. And if it peeled up, he would just hand it back to you, and you knew that you had to just go home and do it again.
Wow.
And you can present it at the next one. Anyway, long story short, I think LA was
discipline.
Curating. Yeah, it was curating some of the creative thoughts and ideas that I had, but being able to build it into like a rigor and discipline that definitely helped my execution.
And also probably gave you your own individual. I mean, I can imagine like growing up as a shop kid at Zane and the influence that you had. Did you feel like, well, this is the only way to do design ever? Or, like I would think that this would give you a different perspective on design.
Yeah,
from
did
what
like
you
being
grew
away
up
from
with?
home for like 2 years, like did that
Yeah.
like kind of like change your perspective, kind of give you a new perspective?
When
that
the
you brought home?
stadium is named after your grandma, and every one of your elementary teachers is wearing a Zane. In this small world of Hilo, I literally felt like everybody knew who I was, and everybody had their eyes on me, making sure that I wouldn't make any wrong move. So when I went to LA, I was like, freedom!
Yeah,
I can do whatever I want. No, it definitely, like, to your point, it definitely helped me explore other avenues of creativity and see how other people are able to take their design discipline further. And so I think that was a huge growing moment for me. And at the same time, you notice driving here, you don't see any billboards, because we have a billboard law.
Yep.
And I think that typography is, it's almost like a skill set, like it's a muscle that you have to work with typography constantly. And I think in LA, you're exposed to so much more design, on a day-to-day basis. Over here, definitely beautiful environment, most unique paradise that you can find. But in LA, you actually get that opportunity to exercise your graphic design. And so I think that's another point that they definitely helped with.
Yeah, you're just like visually surrounded by like everywhere you look. It's like
And no matter
Yeah.
stores, whatever stores we went to or got kicked out of.
that's another episode.
A few drinks in.
So what brought you home? I mean, so was the plan always to move back? And did you have a plan when you were going up there that you would eventually come back?
I wanted to stay there as long as possible. I think I enjoyed the freedom a little too much. Yeah, so I definitely wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
And I think I enjoyed being able to work for some of the brands up there, no matter if it's an internship, and see how they do it. But at the same time, my dad straight called me and he said, "Are you going to pay for your college?" And I was like, "No." "Oh, I am a little bit." He's like, "Are you going to pay for all of it?" I was like, "Well, you're paying for something." He's like, "Yeah, that's right. So you're coming home." I was like, "Oh, okay."
I mean, you could have made another presentation and presented it to Gung again.
Yeah, he would have been like, "Oh, you know what? Double no."
That was great, but no. Come home.
So
Okay.
that's how I ended up at home.
Yeah.
Okay. So you came back home and then started designing at Zane right away, or?
Weirdly enough, that's what I thought was going to happen. And I came back home and my dad was like, "Oh, perfect. I'm so glad that you learned all of this graphic design. So I'd like you to start on the floor, just work in retail." And I was like,
I just went to school for 2 years.
"What are you talking about?" So I ended up working the retail in the front and then also working in the back of house for the first 2 years that I was back. I might have been even more because I slowly made my way back up to the design. And even when I started doing design, he put me on hourly for design too. And so he's like, "You can just do a couple hours here and then go back downstairs." But I think those times were so essential because in those conversations with a lot of customers at the time, you get to understand the psyche of each of these customers and what they feel is important. And at the same time, you can understand back of house of how you can curate the right experience for each of these customers too. And so it was definitely essential at the time. But one of the biggest takeaways from that, in hindsight, of course, is that I was so hyped up about design after coming back from LA, and my dad didn't let me do design, and so all day I had to like just work in the shop, but I still wanted to design. And so I built this habit of going home after dinner. I would just start designing from 9 to 12.
Wow.
And I enjoyed it so much that I started making my own T-shirts. Sometimes I'd design stuff for my dad or something like that, or I'd do projects for like some companies. But I started to just design from 9 to 12. And so weirdly enough, I would work throughout the whole day, come home, then design from 9 to 12. And that built in this habit to even today. Obviously, I'm a lot more busy, especially with my son. But now even today from 10 to 12, I'm still working in at 10 to 12. So I think it built in this just like kind of like this idea of grinding at another time of the night too. And I think a lot of people have that same type of grind in them too. But I think my dad definitely like solidified that.
That's so good.
Have you had a conversation with your dad where like he was like, I did that on purpose, or like did you ever talk to him about that at all? Or?
I don't think I actually ever talked to him about that, but I think my dad definitely makes a lot of decisions based off of his na'o, or from his gut, and I think that's something probably I learned the most from him, because his belief in it is that if you can properly channel your na'o or properly channel your gut, then you're not the only one making this decision. It's the generations of people that came before you making this decision, and I think that with that model, maybe that's what made him decide, you know what, minimum wage, downstairs talking to customers. You know what, that's generations of my pocket is telling me that. Anyway.
Hey, but I mean, it was a very valuable time for you.
Yeah, that's definitely valuable.
In hindsight.
In hindsight, at the time it was terrible.
Yeah. So then eventually you did become you started designing for Sig Zane, and then.
Yep. Eventually, I actually made it upstairs at a certain point, and I worked with Punavai, who was the person that taught me all of the design programs. And so, in my time that I was working with them, he was basically showing me the ropes of what he did for fabric repeats. And so, when you look at a fabric actually, any of these, I don't have any yellow shirts hanging up right now, but our typical fabric screen is about 45 inches wide, or the width of the fabric, and the height of it is about 24 inches tall, and it repeats itself on the fabric. Typical screen printing style, which were still hand printed literally in Kalihi in Oahu, on Oahu. And that style of design is kind of unique because the repeat is so large, and so he had to teach me how to do these textile repeats. And so that was probably one of the most integral ones. So I think at the very core, typography is definitely a part of my design, but I have a strong appreciation for fabric textile prints too.
That's so cool. I know we had like Jana Lam on, and she gave us like a little 101 on like textiles and like those big screens and like.
No, John is definitely one of them. I remember when she first started to come out with products, I was like, oh, wow, because if I'm not mistaken, Johnny, you can correct me, but she was working at one of our events that we had at I think it was with, it was called Travel Rights, but it was a pop-up that we had at it's not coming to me, it's where Nobu is in Waikiki. I think it's a different name, the hotel now, but we had a pop-up over there, and we had a few people that we were kind of collaborating with and volunteering with, and she was definitely working at that one. And then when I saw her products come out, I was like, oh, that's awesome that she's actually being able to fulfill some of these ideas that she had. And now to see how successful she is, she's killing it.
She's killing it. Yeah, so cool. Okay, so you come back to work at Sig Zane, and then you work your way up. And so today you're the creative director. And so do you still get to do design? Like, and also like, how has design changed over the last 30 something
25
years?
Yeah.
30 something. Wait, how old is, so you were 3 when Sig Zane was?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so 30 something years. Has it changed a lot over the years, the design?
I feel, well, okay, so I'll use the Hawaiian Electric logo as an example. When we did the Hawaiian Electric logo, at the time there was a logo that they had, but it wasn't prominent. Like they weren't really using it. They called it like the burger logo or something because if you go look it up, it was like a stack of how they had it. And at the time, not a lot of people were proud of it within the company, and it didn't really have like a narrative that touched anyone. So it was irrelevant. They didn't really use it. But then when we came in, we brought our framework of design, and we brought our hand-cut artwork, and we brought all of these kind of like items to the table to do the redesign. So when the design came out, it wasn't even compared to that back to the other logo, you know, it was just kind of like a new step.
Yeah.
And I think that new step only happens because design was so young in Hawaii in general. And in the same way with 6 Zane Designs, there were so many innovative steps to be made at the time, because there were literally, if you're calling out like Alfred Shaheen and some of the other classic designers at that time, they made big leaps and bounds and steps during their time when they were the fashion designers of that era. And then the personal computer happened. And I think with the personal computer, with the apps, I mean, with the programs at the time, apps now, but with the programs at the time, they had to mature too. So I think that from that early 90s all the way through to the 2000s, I think that was kind of like the era when these programs like Illustrator really started to like expand itself. And so I wouldn't ever take the credit that it was just our initiative that we kind of like expanded graphic design, but I think also too the technology allowed for the graphic design to expand. And so yes, to answer your question, I feel like it changed a lot. And like one of the things I'm definitely proud of is being able to put together one of our first typography Aloha shirts, just typography, not even my dad's handwriting. It was literally just typography. And that was in 2003 or 2004 that we did that. And then there's a few other like linear type of prints that we created that I definitely feel was the start of a whole genre of textile too. And then even the combination of ohe kapala, which is the bamboo stamp, the combination of ohe kapala on aloha wear, that definitely has built into literally multiple businesses are doing that too right now. And so I don't think we're the original of this, but I definitely think we brought some items to light, and maybe from there it expanded. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
Do you think that comes from like, you know, your hula background, like of all like the chants and the stories and just having like purpose behind everything, you know?
I think that came from my dad. Like both my dad and my mom felt that was important when they started 6 Zane Designs. Because at the time when 6 Zane Designs first was just kind of like coming to fruition, I don't think any of the Aloha shirts had native artwork on it, or native plants, sorry. And my dad told me that they were going to a party in Kane'ohe, and they were trying to go buy an Aloha shirt for this party. And my dad, since he was learning hula at the time, he learned about ohia, he learned about maile, he learned about ie, he learned about all these plants. But then when he went to the store, I think it was Liberty House or something.
Liberty House, wow.
You remember that, right?
Andrew does not remember that.
I'm so bummed that they disappeared. That was like one of the best examples that we had as like our own like department store.
My mom had some bags in the closet. So.
Like, what is this Liberty House?
That sounds like a separate podcast theme right there. Bags in the closet.
Oh yeah, bags in the closet.
I'm pretty sure my mom still has bags from Liberty House saved up.
So yeah, he went to Liberty House to go buy him a Aloha shirt, and he realized that there was no company out there that was actually putting out native plants on their shirts. And so that was kind of like the start of 6 Zane Designs. And then I guess if you want the more romantic story of 6 Zane Designs, basically when my dad was trying to like court my mom in the halau, he was dancing in the halau at the time.
Oh, he was dancing in halau.
He was dancing in the halau. He started in the 70s, but before they actually got together, he was already dancing because my grandma, Edith, on my mom's side, told him to come and why don't you come and learn at the college? And then he ended up dancing for the halau a little bit later. And so in the time that he was courting my mom, he was enjoying himself surfing and fishing and just kind of cruising all on this island, being a hippie. But in that time, he didn't have any savings or anything. So the only thing he could do was actually create this artwork, the artwork that he still does on Ruby Lith, and then screen print. And so he would screen print pareos and gift that to my mom.
Wow.
And then people, in the halau, some of the aunties in the halau, they were like, "Oh, Nalani, where you got that pareo from?" And then she'd be like, "Oh, that guy over there, the pocket over there." And then that's basically the start of 6 Zane Designs. So
that's so cute. A little custom pareo.
Yeah. Unique, one of one.
One.
Oh, I hope she still kept that. That's so sweet.
Actually, that's a good point. I should ask my mom if she has
Yeah,
any of those
the
older
original
ones. Yeah.
Sig Zane
OG Sig Zanes,
designs.
yeah.
Wow, that's so cute. I wondered about that. Like, I wondered if like your mom or your family like influenced the design, like your dad's designs.
Yeah, no, 100%. Sig Zane Designs is and I said this before, but Sig Zane Designs, I feel, is an intellectual subsidiary of Edith Kanakaole because of what she stood for, because of her massive amount of influence, as well as because of her solid foundation that she had. She influenced a whole nother generation at that time during the Renaissance. She influenced a whole nother generation to be able to take on that kuleana and pass it forward. And I think that my dad took on this kuleana of being able to do retail in a typical Pake fashion, to do retail, but at the same time, how do we use this retail product of an aloha shirt to be able to share these cultural narratives that are embedded in ancestral texts that go back for generations, that was all passed down through hula. And so I think that with my dad, he was looking at this as an initiative that he could share and express his creative side, but at the same time as a vehicle to be able to share all of this knowledge that he learned from my grandma.
That's so awesome. Did he have a lot of time with her, your dad?
I think at the time maybe about 5 or 6 years, so
Yeah.
not a whole lot of time. And then my grandma passed away just before I was born too.
Yeah.
And she passed away in 1979. I was born in 1982, and I think
Yeah.
that now, especially a little bit older, of course, but I think the value of going back to some of her recordings and just being able to hear her voice. I mean, as much as sometimes, nothing against this, but sometimes I don't want to do interviews, you know? And at the same time, I think if there's something important that you'd be able to pass on to the next generation is that idea that you get to share your psyche, you get to share your thoughts, your concepts, and then also hopefully your future generations will be able to hear it too.
Yeah, that's so amazing that they had captured. Thank God they captured her in her own way, like the way that she said things and like her own voice and her own expressions. You know, it's like that's so important. It's like I'm sure she was like in the newspaper and all that stuff too, but like just the fact that you can watch her and like or hear her voice, that's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's it was. I mean, for me, maybe it's something that I just held on the inside, but I always was like pretty bummed that she passed away before I was born.
Yeah, like right before,
Yeah.
or you just missed her by like a few years.
But I never knew that.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, at the time she just passed, but my kuku, Luka Kanakaole, which is her husband, of course, but he lived with me when I was all the way till he passed in 1989. And so his demeanor, his character, and how he held himself definitely held a huge impression on me too. And so I think that a little bit of her was passed on through him, as well as the generations that came before him, because the Kanakaoles, they go pretty deep in Kūha'o. So
Yeah, that's so cool that like, I mean, did you know growing up, I know we're going back to the beginning, but did you know growing up, I guess now that you like bring up Kūha'o, so I'm from Kūha'o, but I never really realized growing up like what gift that was.
Wait, okay, explain this to me. Kūha'o?
I grew up in Pahala, like, and I graduated from Kūha'o High School, and that's where I'm from. I was like sheltered, small town mentality. I didn't know how special the place was.
My jaw's not dropped. My jaw's not dropped.
Not a lot of people even know where Kuha'o is.
No, that's the reaction I get from everybody, I swear. No, but
Wow.
I just
You
like,
get a cheers for that.
Oh yes, and that's like
Mahalo.
my dad and my mom graduated from Kūha'o High School. My grandpa is from there. But I don't know. I just like growing up, I was like, oh man, I'm from this like small town, as if it was like kind of shitty. Like, oh, I want to be from Hilo or something, you know? Like, I didn't realize like how special that was until way into like my adult life. And then I hear all these stories of people from like about my place and like about Kūha'o and like how important that place is and like how lucky I was to be able to grow up there. And so I just like, man, I wish I knew back then. Like, I had no idea that that place was so special growing up. They never taught us that in school or anything like that. But I guess, like, growing up in your family, did you realize when you were growing up, like, what a privilege that really was?
Nope, not at all. That's
Yeah.
why I felt so free in LA, you know. And I think at the time, media and, you know, larger networks or whatever at the time, there's a heavy amount of machoism. There's a heavy amount of Americana that was happening at the time. And I think now with specialized media, especially with social media, you're allowed to indulge yourself into your own indigenous identity, no matter where you come from.
That's true.
And so I think that now we're more at the mercy of algorithms, of course, but at the same time, I think that with this opportunity to so much media out there, you can connect more to things that might be more closer to your core or to your soul, you know. And so I think that even, especially with Pahala too, I think that you know, Kaikena has that song A'ali'i, but A'ali'i kumakani. So A'ali'i is that little flower that you see, you know, on the saddle road. But A'ali'i kumakani was all said because of the people of Kūha'o, because you can't uproot an A'ali'i, and it's there to be able to stand the test of any wind that blows by. And I think when you have those kind of like, I mean, yes, these are just olelo no'eaus, but at the same time, if you're in your life and you're over 30, I'm just playing.
I'm not listening. I'm just kidding.
but you know, if you're like going through whatever challenging moment, there's these little core lines like A'ali'i kumakani is that the idea of being able to stand and withstand any challenge that you know you're confronted with. And I think to be able to have those gems, knowing that you're from someplace like that, to me those are the foundational values that is embedded in Hawaii, because we still have this this culture available to us, or these narratives available to us. But yeah, that's what Sig Zane is all about.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
No, totally. It's cool to see, like, you guys are like an OG. You guys have been around for a long time. You've been doing this for a long time, but it's cool to see like other companies, like New York companies, start and have that as their core. Like, start with that. Like,
some of them they're doing it so good. I'll be like scrolling on Instagram. I'm like, oh damn, that was good.
yeah.
So like, what was the driving force into, like, you know, starting this whole project to release this US quarter?
You know, so He Aloha, I was working with her for some of the projects at what's called HOMA now, but Honolulu Museum of Art. I was working with one of the projects with her on that, and I got an email from her, I believe, or something that was just kind of like putting me on notice that my grandma's name was submitted for a quarter for the U.S. Mint.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't sure if it was going to get selected or not. And I think at the time I was like, what? Maybe it's spam. Delete. I just
Or you got lost in your inbox.
It just seemed like such a like unfathomable type of concept that my grandma was going to be on a quarter. So I think that from that point all the way through to somebody from the U.S. Mint actually emailed our foundation, our Kūha'o Foundation, and let us know that she is in the running for it, and then finally gave us a confirmation. Like, that whole time it was like surreal, to the point where like, is it really spam? It's spam. Yeah.
Is this real? Is this email real?
Right now.
I think they're fishing for information. Anyway.
Don't give them your credit card.
Yeah, exactly. It's so weird. But yeah, no, as soon as it was confirmed, then obviously we were all like floored by this honor. And now to be able to see the quarter in hand, I still haven't ran into it in circulation. So like, I started to pay for stuff with cash, because, you know, nobody pays for stuff with cash anymore.
Yeah.
Just to get
But I
change.
started to pay for stuff with cash just to see when I get it. I haven't gotten one into circulation, but Hilo.
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 You got both experiences now.
So I did go to Kilka General Store down in Kilka, and I paid for a laulau over there. It's one of the best laulaus. But I paid for a laulau over there, all in quarters. The guy behind me was tripping out because there's a long line, and I was like, one.
He's like, really cool.
3, 4. But yeah, I paid all in Edith quarters just so that I could, you know, like jumpstart the circulation a little bit.
Can you just go to the bank and ask for it? Like, hey, can I get like...
Now, I believe, I definitely am talking to ASB, and so American Savings Bank will definitely, just one of my friends works there, but I know that they said that they have, but I'm pretty sure no matter if it's CPB or whatever bank is out there, they'll all have this within their circulation. It just depends on when the quarters are going to be delivered to each of the banks.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
I see.
Like, so even just like that experience, like you paying for it, like how was like, did you like see his reaction or did he even notice? Like how
The
do you...
guy on the other side of the counter was just looking at me like, oh my God, bruh, hurry up. And I was like, I was just so in the moment. I was like, here you go. All of these quarters,
Just have it.
these are special.
It's not like you're buying a spam subi. You're
Yeah,
buying
yeah.
a freaking luau
Luau plate.
plate.
Yeah, exactly. It took a couple. 6, 7.
Sorry, still going.
Oh, that's so cool. I wonder if it's like, I wonder if people can get it on the mainland. Do you know if...
I know one of my cousins was just in Arizona, and he got one in circulation.
In
He
circulation?
paid for cash.
Just
and
in the
then-
wild?
Yeah, in the wild.
Oh, that's so crazy.
That's so cool.
My goal is to make this 25 cents worth more than 25 cents.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Oh,
best
100%.
idea.
Yeah.
If you can, if you only have 50 cents, but you have to pay for something on $1,
It's like,
just go with 50
"Hey,
cents, be
yeah."
like, I got 2 Edith quarters. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I know you have like so much going on. I'm sure we can talk about, fatherhood.
Yeah, I guess-
If you, Sig Zane, like all the
Fatherhood.
new collabs.
I mean,
Massive incompetency. That's like my description for fatherhood for me right now.
You kind of like talked about it earlier. You're like, your dad was in that oh shit moment, like when you were 3. So it's like, okay, you have a newborn now. It's like, what's next? I mean, like, what are you kind of like getting involved with, and what are you working on?
I think that's good because I think with my dad, like he maybe had that oh shit moment, and for me, like watching my dad too, I didn't want to have that moment.
Yep.
So I definitely wanted to try and plan out and at least have a foundation for myself before. Now I realize my oh shit moment is okay. I have all of these projects,
too much
and
stuff
all of
going
these things, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta change a diaper. And so, yeah, I'm learning, and I will say that I'm thankful for, I went through the Omidyar cohort through the fellowship. Each of the people in our Omidyar in cohort 7, the lucky 7s, what we called it, but each of them also have kids of their own, and they were extremely helpful in just giving their own perspectives for them, respectively, as CEOs themselves, of how they kind of like, it doesn't really matter about the execution part, but just how they mentally process through all of this, because it can get heavy at times.
Yeah.
And I definitely think with some of the insights that they shared and the hindsights in retrospect that they shared definitely helped out a lot.
What was one that kind of just like stood out to you or like very memorable?
One of them, one guy told me, and he's a pretty busy guy too, but he basically said, he's like, I went to work, after the initial, like maybe 2 weeks, he went back to work, and he said he went to work and did a long day at the office. It was something like a 10-hour, 12-hour day at the office. And when he left, and by the time he came back, he said he looked at his son, and his son looked like a different person. And I was like, I never thought about it. He's like, they change that quickly. And that really resonated with me. So I actually ended up taking 3 months off.
Good for you.
As much as I didn't understand that, and this is a shout out to all the women out there, as much as I didn't understand the idea of paternity and maternity leave, I definitely think in going through this, especially with my better half, Shay, of course, I definitely think we're so far behind in our maternity and paternity programs.
Compared to the rest of the world.
Compared to the rest of the world. No matter if it's
Totally.
New Zealand or Canada, they have definitely a lot more intricate, detailed ones that last for 18 months, And so, yeah, I think we have some catching up to do. And not only in the way of like spend the time with your kid type of thing, in the way of you're investing that initial 3-month period or that 6-month period in creating the better product of a kid because you're investing that time with him or with her.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that that's something that we're changing our policies here.
Oh, good
Oh,
for
nice.
you.
Designs.
Yeah.
And so I'll be the first to admit that I never understood it, of course, but in hindsight now that I went through the experience, I'm like, oh shit, we got to change all of that. And so I think that that's something that going through the experience definitely has helped me change.
Yeah, I mean, we just didn't know any better because
Yeah.
it wasn't available. It wasn't even an option for
Yeah.
like our parents, and like you just kind of keep repeating the cycle until somebody's like, "Wait a minute, this is broken."
Yeah.
Totally,
You know?
totally.
And you're both I mean, it's hard,
Yeah.
but we talk to people even on the podcast. Like we had Malia Kaihui
Yeah.
on here. She's,
I don't know how she does
Yeah,
it. She
yeah.
has like 100 children.
And they all do their own thing.
And they're all entrepreneurs in
Yeah.
their own right
Oh.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. She's like 10 kids, 10 businesses. I'm like, what the? She's amazing. But then like I learned so much from her too. Like even like she had posted something recently. She's like, it's okay to not be perfect. Like just let it be messy.
Yeah.
Like I think as a parent, like especially a new parent, you want your kid to be just like so like wearing the cutest things and like have the cutest gear and like just be perfect and sleep trained and you know
Yeah.
all this like stuff all lined up perfectly. But then if you release that control and just be like, sorry, she's here and we're going to have the baby at the podcast. Like, you're just going to
No,
be
totally.
here. You know, it's like, that's how life is. And then you just take that pressure off of you. So I'm still learning. And my kids are older already. They're like 8 and 10. But I'm still learning about how to be a intentional mother and working mom.
Yeah, and especially to understand that you don't have to let that guilt weigh you down either. You know, and that's something that I'm still kind of learning too, because especially with my parents as well as with generations from before, they were high achieving people, and they had high standards and expectations, and at the same time, I think mental health is definitely something to be able to and take seriously, and to understand that guilt is a heavy part of that mental health. And so I think whatever your own personal protocol or your own personal practices, no matter if it's meditation or if you go surfing in the morning, whatever those is, make sure that as you're trying to like confront some of these challenges in life, to be able to have your own protocol that you do so that you can be mentally ready for that too.
100%. Yeah, that's so good. What are some of the things that you do that keep you in that good zone?
I do meditate. I was always aware of meditation. My dad is definitely he's highly influenced by Eastern culture too.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
like feng shui, meditation, whatever it would be. And then also we spent a lot of time with Shinto priests in Japan. And because Shinto religion is very close to Hawaiian in a lot of their thought processes and beliefs too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And so we went all the way to the Ise Shrine, which is kind of like their mecca of Shinto. And I really got influenced by how deep Japanese culture is, as well as my own Chinese culture. And then at the same time, how meditation is, it could be new age to a certain degree, but it's a practice that has happened for, so long. And so I finally got into meditation as a regular practice, and maybe for the past, 4 years now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
So-
It's like a routine you do like in the morning or?
Pretty much 20 minutes every morning. Now, currently, it's 20 minutes if Naholava goes to sleep. So he'll wake up at 5:30. And then he'll do his thing, he'll eat a little bit, and then if he usually gets tired enough to go back to sleep around 8:30. He goes back to sleep by 8:30, then I can get my full, morning protocol in, meditate. Sometimes I'll do guided meditation, sometimes I'll do quiet meditation, kind of depends at the time.
Nice.
That's so good. We talk about this a lot too. I don't know. I gotta really be disciplined with it, because then...
It's not for everybody, but I think that's why you design your own protocol. But just as long as you have the consistency to it, then it's all good.
Yeah. What's like the biggest benefit you get from it? Just like clear mind.
I think for me, I would even say it's a weakness of mine too. I think that I've been so conditioned by my family to act a certain way. And sometimes it's for either, public image, or if it's to do what my parents are saying, or to do what my aunties expect, whatever it is. But I think now with meditation, it just allows you a little more space around your mind to give you that opportunity to make a new decision. So rather than just reacting to things at the moment, meditation just gives me that little space or that little gap in my mind that I'm allowed to say, like, okay, wait, I don't have to react in that way to this situation. I can react in a new way and change things. And so I can ask myself at that moment, no matter if it's a split second or whatever it is, I can ask myself at that moment, how would I like to respond to this for a better situation?
Being mindful versus reactive.
Yeah. And so
that's so good.
it's probably the biggest thing that it gives me.
Yeah.
That's so good, because that's another thing that's just yours. Like how you're saying, like you're so influenced by your family, and now even like now you have a like new baby and like catering to his needs, but then at least you carve out this time that's just yours, and that's just for you, like not based on what somebody else needs or expects of you.
And this is only something in the past 4 years.
But that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a long time. Well, COVID is a blur, right?
Yeah.
COVID is like at least 2-year blur, 3-year blur or something like that. So, but yeah, it's something that it just was implemented. But, you know, in the saying that like for everybody under 30,
Not gonna mention any names.
you know, there's so many changes that you can
Yeah.
make over the
Yeah.
years that like, I think that, you know, you're never too old to be able to learn something new or to be able to implement something new.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I know like you already gave us so much of your time, but I wanted to ask like one more question, was that like now, like where you are in life now, like where do you think, and you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but like where is your like your driving force right now, like as far as your Kuleana, that's not just like from your parents and like from your grandma, but like where do you think Kuha'o's like Kuleana stands right now, and like what you want to do in the next 10 years?
It's a deep question to end it.
I was just thinking to myself as you're like asking me this deep question, I was like, this is the longest a beer has ever lasted. It's been about an hour
Because it's so
on the
good.
same beer. No, it's super good.
Ola Brew, maybe you'll be a sponsor.
Please not. No, I think that's a great question, and I'd love to give you a cliche answer like everything is for my son. Okay, so this ties back to the earlier question about like the 4 generations in the future. I think the number one thing that I see is that there is a lot of knowledge that is built into indigenous practices in general around the world. And I think that that's showing itself currently right now, and it can help solve a lot of the current modern problems that we have. And I think that my goal is to be able to use our platform of design, marketing, storytelling, narrative, to be able to use our platform to have people accept these indigenous solutions and implement them within their companies. And it's not just for Hawaiians. To me, in Hawaii, you have a kuleana, or you have a responsibility to Hawaii if your 2 feet are on this island for no matter how long it is. If it's, you know, your 2-week vacation, or if it's your 1-month stay on the Kona side in a private jet, or if you've been here because your parents came here to work the plantation, or if you just moved here recently during COVID, it doesn't really matter. If your 2 feet are on here, you have a responsibility to this island. And I think that one of the important things is how do you live in synchronicity with the island? And one of the best things that I was taught, or that was shared with me, was that to be able to live in synchronicity with the island, you have to look at the people that have been living in synchronicity with the island for generations. And one of the things that was taught, of course, was that the chants that we have, yes, they talk about Pele and they talk about Hi'iaka, but they're not talking about actual gods and goddesses. When you really look at the translation of this, or when you really look at the breakdown of these chants, it's environmental data that is embedded in these chants for generations. And so if you wanted to live in synchronicity with the island, a lot of the answers are in these chants. And how do we share this data, or how do we share this information through podcasts, or how do we share this information through aloha shirts, or design projects, identities, or whatever the projects may be. And then I think the next step after that for the next generation, maybe you can hear that one, Hilo. I think for the next generation is, how do you create companies and entities that will help translate this indigenous knowledge into modern solutions? And I think that's the next step. And then, of course, just making sure that I dress my son up cute when I bring him into the office. If you dress him up cute,
they have some cute things downstairs that you can put him in.
He has a couple customs, a few here and there. Yeah.
What are like some easy things that people can do though? I mean, I like that it's like there's an educational component I think missing for, like you say, people who like just moved here. I think people want to be respectful to their place that they live in, and like people who are from here for like a couple generations, they want to be in synchronicity with the land. But like, what are just like maybe like an easy thing that somebody could do?
Okay, so I'm just pulling it up right here. You can look this on the camera and maybe you can focus it later, but vehe vehe viki viki, the easiest way, because even this is something that we have all of our employees make sure that they have on their phone or on their homepage. But I think one of the best parts within here is you can just type in any word, and it's most important not only to see the immediate translation of the word, but the multiple translations of one Hawaiian word. And I think that with that, you start to pick up on the different almost network of definitions that are built into the language. And I think that's super easy, no matter if you're translating the term aloha or mahalo or whatever the term is, or if you're translating a term like kinolau or something. So I think that if you just download that, that's the easiest step to see the intellect that's within the language that is, of course, embedded in place.
Vehe vehe.
Viki viki.
Viki viki.
Yep.
We'll put that up.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Nice.
I feel like I could talk to you forever. There's like so many. So many things I want to ask you, but I want to be respectful of your time. But thank you so much.
No, thank you.
No, thank you for
conversation.
Bringing us into your space and letting us set up and just talk story.
Yeah, we're excited for all the things coming up. Like, it seems like there's just a lot.
There's a lot of projects ahead.
Yeah, but all good stuff.
Definitely. And thank you I'm honored with the opportunity to be able to share a little bit, talk story, and of course laugh, and then get your little Hilo character too.
And drink a little.
This was really fun.
Oh, yeah. And the olas. Cheers.
Cheers.
Finally finishing the hour-long beer.
Yeah.
sigzane.com.
sigzane.com, or if you want to go on Instagram at Sigzane Designs and at Kuha'o.
At Kuha'o.
Yep.
Nice. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mahalo.